things going on in the show. I mean, if you've been following me, you've been watching me, I brought someone on here. We did some live dating right here on Sway TV. We did a mock date, and we have done closet ambushes where I raid people's closet and then I do a makeover using Amazon products and have amazing guests. And that relates to who we have today. And he's a dear friend of mine too, so I'm super excited. But before we get started, I want to see who is here and who might be new. Hi, Carol from Florida. Welcome, welcome. And Steph, hello, hello. Well, and if you're new and you're not familiar with this platform, you're going to click the follow button because that's going to allow us to interact with you and you to us. This show is interactive, and the more love you give us, we give back. I mean, I really enjoy any kind of questions that you have that we can answer here live on Sway TV. And I love the topic. You know, if you've been watching this show, I have been talking a lot about getting back out there, right? Like, we've been cooped up a little bit, and I think our social muscle has gotten atrophied for a while, and we are all going out into the real world and saying, oh, how do I even talk to people nowadays? So it's something that we're all excited about, but we're also having anxiety about. I mean, I think a lot of people are experiencing almost like social anxiety. Even if you never had it before, you might be experiencing that now. So I want to talk about not only just getting out there, but how you can use networking to build out your love life and your business life and just create more opportunities for yourself. Because here's the thing, and I'm just gonna call y'all out because I feel like so many people, and this is a big mistake that a lot of people do, they compartmentalize their dating life. They say, okay, well, they go to the grocery store, they go out in the public, and they're not even mindful of like who's around them. Maybe they go to an event and they're just like target specific and what they're supposed to talk about at the event. But all of those are opportunities to create just new connections for yourself. And what is happening is you'll go to the grocery store and say, okay, I'm gonna go home and now I'm gonna focus on my dating life. Now I'm just gonna swipe right and left, and this is when I'm gonna focus on dating. And you're really doing yourself a disservice by not just thinking about networking, like I call it dating networking, as something that is an opportunity everywhere and anywhere you go. I had a client, I'll tell a quick story and then I'm gonna bring my guest on. I was coaching this client, and she's like, Kimmy, I don't really go anywhere, so I don't even know how to build out my dating network. You know, I go to work, I go home, and I said, wait a second, you told me that you go somewhere every Tuesday. Where is that? And she said, oh, well, I have these like political meetings, but that's not for dating. I said, excuse me, do men go to this political meeting? She says, oh yeah, but we just talk about politics. I said, I get that. And what if you talked about other things? What if you actually got to know these people that you've been seeing every single week to actually create some connections for yourself? And she said, well, I think that's really weird. I said, great, you just hired me and paid all this money, you're gonna do it. I say, she said, okay. So the following week she goes, and I told her to get dressed up, to wear a dress, not her typical blazer, put a smile on her face, and actually talk to people and get to know them beyond the political atmosphere and all the facts that they were talking about every single week. So she comes back on our coaching call. She says, oh my gosh, Kimmy, that worked like a dream. I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, I can't believe it, but I got asked out, and I think I made a friend that I can go out with, another single girlfriend. I said, well, what'd you do? She said, well, I put on the dress and I really made a challenge for myself. I just asked more personal questions and all the things that you're teaching me about getting to know people. Because at the end of the day, whether you're doing business with someone, whether it's like a project or it's not even like pertaining to love, people want to do business. People want to make connections or move on with people they like. It's how a person feels when they're with you, not so much what you know. So that relates to the topic that we are doing today. And I have a very special guest that I'm gonna bring on. His name is Jordan Harbinger, but I'm going to bring him on and I'm going to have him introduce himself because I know he's waiting patiently. Jordan, hello.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. I love the fact that we can do this. And I love that it's live, so I'm like, normally I can deliver something silky smooth, and now I'm like waiting for my toddler and cat to attack me because it's that's the luck of the live.
Oh my God, I hope that happens and we'll laugh at
Oh yeah, me too, of course. Who doesn't love a good outtake from a show like this? No, I'm excited to be here. I think it's going to be really fun. I love the topic so far. It reminds me a lot of first of all, dating and business have so much in common, but people who are really good at one aren't necessarily good at the other, and I always find that sort of comical.
Right, and I don't really understand that because it's really the same skill set. Yet again, it's like people compartmentalize the two when really they're one and the same. And I think a lot of the skills and tips that we're going to talk about today, I think people will get it. Well, first of all, introduce yourself. I'm like, oh, just this fabulous person came on, but I didn't really say who you are. I know probably most people know who you are, but
we'll see. So I am the host of the creatively titled Jordan Harbinger Show. It's one of the larger podcasts in Apple and Spotify. I've been doing podcasting and talk show radio in general for about 14 and a half years. And my show, as you know, started as a dating show and has since evolved to me interviewing everyone from Kobe Bryant to art forgers to political figures to neuroscientists. So basically, I just take brilliant people and interview them and let them expose their wisdom to the audience of the Jordan Harbinger Show. And so I teach a lot about networking, of course, here and there as well. I have a course to that effect. But one of the things I do when I'm not doing the Jordan Harbinger Show is I teach networking and relationship development skills to government agencies, law enforcement agencies, intelligence agencies, and things like that, Silicon Valley startups or large corporations that you've all heard of that are, tracking our phones every day. And these skill sets really have near 100% overlap with dating. They honestly do. I think the more we explore it, the more you'll see that it's basically the exact same skill set. And so I've got some systems, drills, exercises, and things that we can share today that I think a lot of people will be able to use right away, whether they need business contacts or they're trying to get their sway on.
Look at you doing, I love that. Well, actually, I think a good segue to what we're about to talk about is how you and I met. I know, I tell this story all the time, and I know there's a lot of people who don't even know who the heck you and I are, so I do feel like we need to share. So Jordan and I, we met, and then you please chime in, we met at this pickup artist summit.
Yeah, cringe, in full body cringe.
Full body cringe.
That was one of the weirder events I've ever been to in my life. And we had no choice but to meet because when I walked in there, there's like a dude with the green mohawk, and then there's like some guy doing magic tricks, and another guy shows up in like a pink Mustang convertible, and I'm thinking like, okay, I'm dressed like a normal human. This is super bizarre. There were probably 3 women there. One of them was you. The other ones looked like they had landed from an anime cartoon straight into the living room. And I looked around thinking, I got to jump over the fence. Like, I'm out of here. And you and I made eye contact. And I think basically I just said something like, oh, hey, you don't look as weird as everyone else here. Can we hang out? And that was kind of the beginning of our decade and change long friendship here.
I know, a beginning of a beautiful relationship. You know, the thing that you said, and this is one of the, obviously, you know that I talk about image and presentation and first impressions, and I know you do a lot of talking about that too, but look at how we connected because of what you just said. Because people make judgments and assumptions based on our first impressions, right? 2 things. It's what we wear and the attitude that we have. And you just highlighted that. Like, we had a similar vibe, we had a similar attitude, and I didn't have pink or purple hair, either did you. So we bonded.
I also recognized in the moment, if memory serves, that you were talking or being talked at by some other strange character, and I thought, I'm 90% on you wanting a way out of that conversation right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and let you have that way out, and we'll start talking, because it felt
oh my God, I forgot about that, actually.
It felt like we were goldfish, and they had thrown us into a weird piranha tank with a bunch of teethless piranhas that were just sort of lipping at us, you know, and it was just unbelievably creepy. And it sort of shows you, for people who don't really know what this event was, or understand what the pickup artist sort of community was, a lot of people know it's like a lot of these guys who are trying harder to be better with the opposite sex. No shade on those guys. A lot of them are really interesting. They're trying their best. This happened to be just a very, very, very strange sort of offshoot group of these guys, and you and I had somehow gotten roped into going to this meetup, and it was instant regret the second I walked in the door. So it was great to meet you there.
Oh my God. And not only that, like, think about how that equates to dating. Like, how many times might you listening, walk into a date and you kind of size that person up and say, oh, I'm out of here, right? Like you said, you were almost bolted. I did too. But the fact that we hung in there and we kind of like eased into the room and our environment, we found something to connect with. And like, even if you're going on a bad date and you don't have anything in common, I always tell people, what can you do to connect with that person? What can you be curious about to create an opportunity? Maybe he's not your guy or she's not your girl, but maybe it's just something he knows that relates to something that you connect with and later on serves you. You know, like maybe it's just the restaurant that you go to and then you meet your future partner at that restaurant because you never knew it before. It's everything, and anywhere you go, there's opportunity. And I think you and I, we took that as an opportunity. We didn't bolt. And because of that, I mean, oh my God, like our friendship has lasted so long. And
Indeed. Yeah, I'm fond of saying that most opportunities lie over the horizon. So when you go to an event or you meet someone, you think there's the opportunity that's right in front of you, and you think that that's all there is. But most of the time there is more. So I will say, from a dating perspective, most of the women that I've ever dated, of course, I've met through someone else. But what I've been realizing even more in preparation sort of for this show was, many of the women that I've dated, especially when I lived in New York, not only did I meet them through someone else, but I remember very distinctly several times walking up, talking to a group of women and, you know, saying, hey, can I get your phone number? You're cute. Like, we're getting along really well. And one of the women I texted, and she goes, okay, so here's the thing. I'm moving, but you need to meet my roommate because you and her would click, and, you know, I'm not going to do a long distance relationship of any kind. I'm going back to her mom was sick or something like that. And she's like, but you need to meet my roommate. Come out tonight. I'll be here. I'm going to bring her, and then you guys can connect. And I dated that girl for a really long time. And it's because I wasn't like, oh, you're not interested in me? Never mind. You know, and she wasn't like, oh, I'm moving. I'm closed off to you. We had just both been sort of like, okay, well, what other things can come from this? And she had turned that and sort of parlayed that into a relationship that worked out really well for me and her former roommate. And in business, you see the same thing. You know, you go and you think, okay, I need to get a graphic designer for my website. So you go to some mixer and all you meet are lawyers and salespeople, and you think, well, that was a waste of time. But if you're really thinking over the horizon, what you realize is now you know a bunch of lawyers and salespeople. You will eventually need something with them, or you'll eventually be able to help them get something that they want. But if you're focused solely on what's in front of you, you will find that most things seem like a waste of time. But when you're looking for the opportunity in every interaction, you'll find that actually opens up quite a few more things. By way of example, when I first moved to LA, this is pre-Uber, right? So I had a toothache, I had no car, I just moved to LA, and I thought, like, how am I gonna get to a dentist? I don't even have dental insurance at this point in time. And I ended up asking friends. I was calling a bunch of dental offices that I found in the yellow pages. Nobody could help me. Nobody wanted to deal with somebody with no insurance, or they were super far away across town in LA, which is really far, especially in traffic. And I posted on Facebook and I said, hey, does anybody know a dentist in the Hollywood area? I've got a toothache. This is an emergency. I can't wait 5 days to get seen. And somebody I don't even know said, yeah, my aunt is a dentist out there. So he called her, introduced us. I went in an hour before they opened. They let me in. They started everything early. They fixed my toothache, didn't overcharge me. And I was so thankful for that. And then I said to the guy who made the intro, who I've never met even to this day, I said, hey, let me know if I can help you with anything. He said, well, actually, I'm looking for a job as a graphic designer. I'm a barista right now at a local coffee shop. Sends me his portfolio. I'm not hiring graphic designers, but a friend of mine 4 days later or a week later asked me if I knew one. And I said, I've never worked with this guy, but here's the portfolio. She goes, I don't care. I'm desperate. I'll take it. The work looks fine. She ended up hiring him full-time, $83,000 a year, if memory serves. And he got that job because he helped me find a dentist on Facebook. So if he had only been looking for a job, he never would have met me. If I'd only been looking to hire someone for that job, I never would have met him. I still have never met him. He helped me without the attachment of anything in return, and he looked for the opportunity over the horizon. Hey, if you're he said, if you're ever hiring for this, but why restrict it to just that? You know, I looked to help him in any way that I could because I owed him one. And I think a lot of people, this goes right over their head because they walk in, they've got their date from Tinder or Match, and they show up and they go, oh, he's too short for me. And then the whole date is horrible. Instead of going, well, I'm not really attracted to him. He's a little short for me, but he's a guy that probably has a lot of friends. Why don't we make another type of connection? He's perfectly nice. You know, those are the people that are successful because they end up with a massive social circle because they're not just rejecting people out of hand because they don't have what they want right in front of them.
I love that. And it's so crucial to like dating life. And I call what you're talking about being like target specific. It's like you have the gun and you're only going to, you know, put your eye on the target. And when you do that, you really do limit yourself, you know, and you have such a more of a closed energy about you too. I have a client, I tell this all the time. It was really similar because she walked into this room, you know, I do my wing gal sessions, as you know, and she walks in, she does a quick scan, she says, oh, there's no one here for me. I don't think anyone's cute. I'm like, oh, great. So that means we're staying. And she's like, what? No. Like the more she didn't like it, the more I wanted her to say. I said, this is what's happening when you're showing up on your match dates. When, you know, like you're surmising that everything isn't working already before you even like ease into the date or ease into an environment. So I made her walk in, we start, you know, chatting up a storm, we network the room. And this group of guys, they were super fun. We're having a blast. And in the middle of it, she whispers in my ear, she says, okay, Kim, I have a confession. I think that guy's really hot. I said, oh, you mean the one that was just really not your type?
Yeah, he was not your type. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So this is the stuff.
I think also, you know, when you get to know somebody, like say those guys, none of them were cute. They could have easily have said, hey, you know what, this place is a little slow. Why don't we all go to this other bar down the road and meet up with another bunch of friends? But had you bolted, you never would have gotten that opportunity. And it's really easy to overlook these because, and guys are so guilty of this too. They walk in and they go, oh, there's no good looking people here, we're out. It's really inefficient, to say the least. I'll use the word inefficient because, again, PG-13 rated
I like
show,
that. That's very nice of you,
It's
Jordan.
inefficient. It's not a good strategy. And so people who are the most open, I'll never forget, like some of the, let's just say not super attractive guys that I was friends with in college, but were really charismatic. They were beating them off with a stick because... Yep. They were showing up and nice to everyone, and they would introduce everyone to everyone else, and they could just not get a moment of alone time because they had so many friends and such a wide network. And I remember, I've never made such a quick turnaround. There was one guy, his name was also Jordan, and no, I'm not talking about myself, but we were in high school, and I met him, and I went, oh, I feel so bad for that guy, because I remember he had so much, like, forehead to chin, 100% acne in his face, and he had like a burn from when he was younger. He had gotten burned by some like hot water, and then he had gotten a cut on the side of his face from some other thing, from I don't know, like some accident, whatever. And he was just one of the guys where you go, oh, that poor bastard, you know, he's just really gonna have a hard time in life. And this guy would just left and right go, hey, Jordan, you got to date my friend Cassandra. And I'd be like, well, yeah, sure. Where do I sign? He's like, she just won't leave me alone. I keep telling her that we're better off as friends. And I'm thinking, what are you, is it your cologne? Like, what is going on with this guy? And the thing is, he was so outgoing and so charismatic that none of the other things that I thought would matter to everyone mattered. Now, I'm not saying you immediately have to become outgoing and charismatic if you are making up for something else, but what I am saying is you can never write someone off. I mean, if you and your client had walked into a bar and that guy Jordan was in there, she would have looked at him and gone, oh my gosh, get me away from him. She would have talked to him for 5 minutes and they would end up engaged. You know, like, this is that guy. He's got that swagger. And so I thought, like, this is something I need to take note of, because this is something that had shattered all my preconceptions of what it means to be attractive. And again, I was in high school, right? So I had a very limited definition. But I think a lot of us, we take those limited definitions of what it means to be attractive or a catch, we take them and we're 41 and we're still dealing with it. We're 51 and we're still hampered by what we thought we learned in ninth grade about what's attractive and what's not. And it doesn't make sense. It's an outdated model, and we're basically beholden to our own cognitive bias.
It's so true. Yet we do all judge upon that first impression. But I think, to your point, there's so much more to a first impression. And this is like why I call my podcast the Charisma Quotient. And it's the formula that I use to help people, because charisma, I do believe, is that energy and that magnetism that just draws people to you. And within charisma, there are all these different components. You know, there's emotional intelligence, there's style intelligence, there's social intelligence. And those are the things that I think make up that attraction factor that you're talking about. So it's not just, you know, one dimension, so to speak, and the way people look. So I want to get into that, because you said you have some tips that you could help people with networking that I know you teach, and you're really into like social dynamics. And that's why, like, I think you and I, like, we could talk about this topic forever, but what are some things that you see, first of all, not just that, you know, people have a hard time with, but like a big mistake? Before we get into tips, I want to hear about like the mistakes that you see people make.
One of the major issues that I think most people have when they're thinking about relationship development, whether it's networking for business or it's for dating, nobody wants to dig the well before they get thirsty, because they feel like they're putting in effort for something that they don't quite need. So as you probably are aware with even your own clients, the people that are the best at, let's say, rebounding from a divorce are the people that had a ton of friends, both male and female. They had a large support network. They had been investing in the lives of their family and friends the whole time they were married. And then when their marriage didn't work out, they didn't sit at home and watch videos all day on various social networks, right? They didn't just dive into their conspiracy theories or whatever online, right, and get radicalized or whatever the heck all those sort of middle-aged folks like us are doing these days. I'm speaking maybe too much from personal experience, but like the people who are able to go, oh my gosh, call a bunch of friends. All right, I'm getting divorced. I need to lean on my friends. And they're going out all the time, and they're having barbecues at their house, and they're re-engaging some of their social circle. Those people rebounded and bounced back quite a bit faster than anyone who had been isolated. And it's the same thing in business. You know, if I know, let's say that I have an upcoming book in a year or so. I don't, but let's say that I do. I need to be creating and maintaining relationships right now. Because in a year, when I need to come back on Sway TV and talk about a book, it's better if I'm not texting you for the first time in a decade, right? Or emailing you for the first time in 5 years. Right. And we've all gotten those calls or those texts or those emails from somebody where you go, oh, so-and-so from high school? And you're just thinking, they're like, hey, I want to talk to you about something. And you go, oh, is this an MLM or like Scientology? Like which sort of weird culty negative experience am I going to have? Like, you're so suspicious in that moment. So one of the things that I harp on a lot is digging the well before you get thirsty, because people will be a little bit suspicious of you when you first reach out. But if you don't have an agenda, and your agenda is, look, I just want to catch up and re-engage because I've done a bad job of it, they will still be suspicious, but they may take the call, and the whole time they'll be thinking, when's the other shoe going to drop? But if you talk to them again in 6 months and you don't ask for anything, and you talk to them again in a year and you don't ask for anything, then by the time year 2 rolls around and you say, hey, I'm thinking of relocating because I'm sick of working at Comcast, they're not thinking, aha, you've been buttering me up this whole time, because that's a ridiculous thought. At that point, you're not asking them to do a heavy lift. You're just saying, can you help out a friend? And then it's very normal for them to make introductions, to make a phone call on your behalf, to help you find your way around town, to meet up with you. So digging the well before you get thirsty is something that I highly recommend. And you don't have to know what, quote unquote, you want to get from someone. In fact, I mostly recommend giving without the expectation or attachment of getting something in return. So if you're creating a wide network of people in every industry, then you're doing it right. You know, you shouldn't only know people in the automotive industry if you work in the automotive industry. You should know dating coaches and web designers and automotive people and construction workers and teachers, and you should be involved in all of these little circles because you never know where the opportunities are over the horizon, like we talked about in the beginning at the top of the show.
Yeah, that is really good advice. And I think that also goes into when people just do things for one reason, like if it's or in a relationship and they forget all their friends, they just focus on their person that they're with. But I think another thing that you're saying that I want to highlight is it's not just keeping things going and the connections, but doing it in an authentic way. And that is the piece that I think is missing a lot, because people, if they have an agenda, then it comes across as not genuine, and people can really feel that,
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, nobody. The grossest is when someone goes, "No, I just want to catch up," and you go, "Okay, it's a little weird, but fine." And they're going, "So what's new? Yeah, oh, I moved here. Oh, yeah, I have a kid. Yeah, me too. So anyway, I have a great business opportunity," and you just go, "I knew it.
just waiting for it. Yeah.
You just want to hang the phone up in their face because you're so annoyed, or they want to meet up and catch up, and you're halfway through your chicken quesadilla, and they're busting out some protein shakes that you can sell from your garage, and you're just thinking, "You bastard, you tricked me into this." And then you never want to hear from them again in your life because you are furious, right? So you don't want to do that. That inauthenticity is the quickest way to burn trust and to burn a bridge. So you're right. The people go, "Oh, how do I be more authentic?" Don't go into it thinking about what's in it for you. Only go into it thinking about how you can maybe help them get what they want, and or how that person might be able to help somebody else in your network get what they want. If you're meeting somebody and they have no quote unquote use to you, right? They're a graphic designer. Think about who in your network can use a graphic designer, and then ask that graphic designer what type of clients they usually take. Now you've got sort of two little pins in your head that say, "Hey, if I meet somebody that does websites, introduce them to this graphic designer. And hey, if you know anyone that needs graphic design, now you know Tom, make sure that you introduce those two people," right?
Yeah.
So you want to keep sort of a list of those in your head, or even in software, which is a little advanced. I use Connection Fox, which is some free software that allows you to put things in there like Kimmy Seltzer, dating expert, and then when I meet somebody who goes, "Oh, I'm having a hard time dating, I just came out of a relationship," I'm not going, "Oh, sucks to be you," right? I'm going, "Oh, I can introduce Kimmy to her or him, and they will probably be able to help each other." And I don't go, "Hey, Kim, slide me a check under my door next time you're in my area for that referral." I just go, no, this was good for you two, therefore it's great for me. I'm building referral currency, and then who knows, in 5 years, when I have something to talk about on Sway TV, I can text you and you are familiar with me, and hell, maybe you even owe me one, right, for that referral. If I'm thinking, how do I get Kim to owe me one, now it gets sort of smarmy. Or if I'm thinking, what can I get from Kim, now it's smarmy. So you really have to be looking out for what you can do for other people, and not looking at what's in it for you, because what's in it for you either is over the horizon or it's inappropriate to ask, especially in the beginning. And usually you just don't know. And if you will only execute on something when you know what's in it for you, you will probably never really do anything. Because if all of your relationships are transactional, how many friends do you actually have? I would argue probably not that many / none.
Yes. And I want to build on that too, because when you're building connections with people and talking about that authenticity, a lot of people ask me Kimmy, give me some lines that I can say when I walk in the door, walk in a date. And I always say, no, I will not. See, this relates to the pickup artist thing. That's what drove me nuts, is that they teach lines, and while lines can help at least engage in a conversation, they never come across as genuine. And so again, it's not what you know, it's how a person feels when they're with you, and they can feel that that's a line. They can feel when it's not something that's coming from the heart or something that you're really interested in and wanting to connect. So I have this whole social engagement formula that I teach people how to get out of their head and more into their heart and more personal conversation. So I know you teach some of that stuff too, around communication. Did you want to talk more about the skills?
We can. It's funny, I just thought of an example because a couple of friends of mine came over to say goodbye. They're moving to Michigan. I live in San Jose, California, and they met because one day the guy, his name is Tim, he said, hey, Jordan, I know you're doing all this dating stuff. We were in law school at the time. He goes, can I just come out and sort of like see what it's all about? Let's go get a drink. And I was like, yeah, sure. He's a good friend of mine. We're at this bar, and there's basically no one there. You know, it's an empty sort of dead, whatever, Tuesday night or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he sees this girl at the other end of the bar, and she's talking to two guys, and he goes, wow, that girl's really pretty. Oh, but she's with two guys. And I told him, I go, look, she's not with those guys. The body language is this. And so I sort of break down her body language and their body language. And I go, in fact, not only is she not with those guys, I think she's actually highly uncomfortable with those two guys. And he goes, oh, I need a line or something that I can do if I go over there and talk to her. And I said, just say, hey, I thought you were cute, so I thought I would come over here and talk to you. And he goes, well, I guess the worst thing that can happen is I just get rejected, right? And I said, yeah. He walked over there, and he spent so much time talking to her that I left because I said, well, my work here is done.
Yeah.
So I left and went home, and the next day he said, hey, do you have the homework for such and such course? And I said, yeah, why? And he goes, I haven't slept. I didn't go to bed last night. And I said, oh, okay. And it's okay because they're married now with 2 kids. But he goes, you were right. Those guys were actually just bothering her. She was there for a work event. Her colleagues had left. She was like getting rid of, she's, you know, like a liquor rep. And she was like folding up their signage. And then she's like, oh, I'll stay. And then she stayed and hung out with him. And then he ended up like basically just talking with her all night on campus. And then they ended up getting married. And it's because his quote unquote line was, hey, I thought you were really cute, so I just thought I would come over here and talk to you. And she was like, not the greatest line, but also not bad. And also I'm being accosted by 2 strangers. So yeah, like get me out of here. And it comes from situational awareness, the ability to read nonverbal communication, and then that authenticity. Like these guys were saying and doing creepy things. And my friend just said, hey, I don't really have anything creative to say. I just think you're cute and I want to talk to you. And she's like, oh, good. Somebody who's not lying to me to get in my pants. That's a refreshing change. And that was the beginning of their now 10-year or so marriage.
That's a great story. And also when you do that, you're more present, you know, because I think when people are trying to think of a line, it brings you out of being present in that moment. You're in your head. And another thing that you touched on, and I see this happen all the time, is that people spend so much energy predicting and assuming what other people feel and think that they won't approach. I had something similar happen when I was, this was before the pandemic, obviously. We were in a restaurant, and my client, she was like looking into the restaurant, and she's like, oh, well, everyone looks really busy, and there's nowhere we can stand and sit. And I said, you're already worried about what people are doing and that you're not gonna have anywhere to sit and all those things. I said, just be present. Let's just go in. You hired me to talk to people, right? Let's go. So we went in and we created room for ourselves. And that's the thing, like when you go after what you want versus what you think other people need and want, that's also another tactic, is that I think people worry way too much about others. And if you just really want something and you want to get to know someone, you just go after it. That hesitation is also a killer, you know? And so we went in and we had the best time. We got invited to a party, and she ended up like dating one of the guys that we talked to. I mean, it happens. You and I have these stories all the time, and it makes it sound so like easy, but it's, you know, we make it more complicated.
Of course, people overthink things, and there's also a lot of projection, like you said. You know, hesitation is killer, but I also understand why people do it, because our sort of human instinct is to protect ourselves. So we do walk into a restaurant that's crowded and full of strange men or strange women and go, oh, everybody's talking to each other, they're really busy. And what you don't know is that there's 2 people talking to each other going, God, I hope somebody walks in here, because we're just talking about the same thing we talk about every night. No one ever comes and talks to us. You know, you don't know what's going on in people's heads. And like my friend with the 2 guys, the friend who got married and was talking to those 2 guys, she later told us, like, yeah, those guys have been like kind of harassing me all night. It felt kind of unsafe. I was about to call my dad to come drive 45 minutes to come pick me up. And so she's like, you guys saved my butt here. And meanwhile, of course, my buddy, who wasn't paying attention to the nonverbals and reading the room a little bit, due to inexperience, was thinking like, oh, they're definitely together. And I thought, not a chance. But he was worried about it. That's why it's so easy for us to tell our friend, no, go over there and do it. It's fine. They look nice. And they're going, are you seeing what I'm seeing? This is a scary, intimidating, attractive person. They're going to reject me. And you're just thinking like, well, no, because you're able to throw your friend to the dogs, no problem, right? But you're also literally, and what we know from like brain science now is that you're literally seeing two different images. You know, now as a married man who's not dating, when I walk into a bar full of attractive women, I am not nervous at all. If anything, I might even just be a little bit bored because I'm going, oh, what am I going to do here? You know, like I'll just chat people up.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because my friend, another buddy of mine was visiting from out of town, and he's single, and he goes, man, you just have no fear. We were talking to like a bunch of like Instagram model looking women who are just very tall and intimidating and fit. And he goes, you're just not afraid of them at all. And I go, I'm married. I've got nothing here. He's single and he's tall. He's like a fitness guy. I'm like, one, they're looking at you, not me. But two, you have stakes, right? Like if you get rejected, it means something to you and it makes you feel bad. If I go and talk to somebody and she turns around and goes, oh, you're short and you have a dad bod, I'm like, I know. Who cares, right? You know what? So what? I'm married. I got kids. You know, like I have no stakes.
Yeah.
I have nothing at stake. So when we put ourselves in situations where the stakes are low, we have a higher chance of success. And that's why a lot of times when people walk in somewhere or go and do something like your friend or your client at the political event, the stakes are low because she's not going up to a group of super intimidating people and going, oh, please like me. She's like, okay, so I'm either going to ask a personal question and then I'm going to go maybe get a date, or they're not going to take the bite. And then we start talking about, I don't know, Joe Biden again or whatever the political thing is that they discuss at their meetings. And the stakes are extremely low. So we do this thing to ourselves where we build the stakes up so high because we spent an hour and 45 minutes getting ready, and then we drove across town, and it's our only Friday night, and we hired a babysitter. So it's like, I have to meet a man or a woman tonight or my life is a failure. Instead of just going, I'm out here to have fun and get my reps in and practice talking to strangers because I was married for 10 years and now I'm dating again and I don't know which end is up, right? Lower the stakes.
And I think around that, it's also letting go of the expectation of an outcome. You know, I talk about it all the time. That's what flirting is. It's to behave as though you're attracted to someone without the serious intention of an outcome. Yet we get so attached to that outcome and we build it up so much that we do lose that whole thing of what it's supposed to be about. And that's just like, go and have a good time. I know, but it's easier said than done when you don't have, you know, things that you worry about. Like for you don't have to worry about getting a gal. You already have the gal. You already have the kid. So maybe that's a tactic for people. They can just go in pretending that they already have someone when they really don't. Like sometimes you have to just like fake it till you make it, or like trick yourself so that you don't get ahead of things so much.
Right. It is a balance though, right?
It is.
You want to go in thinking, oh, I don't really care if I'm dating right now, but you also don't want to go in going, I'm not dating right now, because then you end up being the person who's surrounded by opportunity and then doesn't see it because you're not in dating mode. But you also don't want to go, okay, I'm in dating mode and now the stakes are so high that if it doesn't work out, I'm going to go home and cry myself to sleep.
It's a balancing act for sure.
Right. Like you want to be open to opportunity at Trader Joe's or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be open to that opportunity at the yoga studio, but you also don't want to be the person at yoga who's only there to date and not stretch, right? You have to do the balance. And it is easier said than done, but once you become aware of this need and you can put some awareness on it, it helps you to do the balance. And the other thing is it also helps you lower the stakes like we were just talking about, because if you go, Fridays are my date night where I go out with Kimmy and I have a babysitter and I dress up and I go out and I meet people, and then you don't do it the other 6.5 nights of the week, the stakes are going to seem high. But if you're open to it in your political meeting and you're open to it at the grocery store and you're open to it at yoga and you're open to it when you go out to lunch during work, you have a lot more surface area to meet someone. And therefore, if it doesn't work out on Friday, your next thought is not, oh my God, 7 more days until I can do this again. Your next thought is, it's fine. I have brunch tomorrow after yoga. And those are 2 other opportunities to do something similar.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And it really goes back to diversifying. I always say your dating portfolio should be like your financial portfolio. You've got to diversify as much as possible in order to get results. When you put all your eggs in one basket and say, okay, I'm only going to date now when I'm on here, and I'm just going to spend, you know, just this time to date and swipe. It never works, and then you get so burnt out doing it because you're putting all that energy into one thing. But if you open that up to everywhere and anywhere our chances of meeting people, the stakes become lower, like you said, and you get more comfortable, because it all has to do with confidence too. If you're not confident networking, if you only like dedicate one particular time and place for networking, you're not going to feel secure and confident. So if you build that out, like what you were saying, I think I love that. And it really is like putting things on the calendar, right? Like different events, you know, getting together with friends, going out by yourself and talking to people in the market. Like the more you do that, the easier it becomes.
Exactly. The concept of surface area that I brought up earlier is really what I'm talking about, right? So the more of that you have, the luckier you will get, like increasing your surface area for luck. So, and people do this all the time in Silicon Valley. They go, oh yeah, I network by going every other Friday, there's a tech founder meetup and we network for an hour or 90 minutes over drinks. And then somebody who has a really great network is like, oh yeah, okay, they'll do that every once in a while. But meanwhile, they've spent the entire week meeting people, talking with people via email, using social media to network. And it's like, you can move to a new town, and if you dedicate a few minutes a day to meeting someone new or going through and doing a new interaction, your network is going to be way larger than the person who goes 20 times a year to one happy hour, and that's their only time for dating or networking, right? It just doesn't work. It's like those people who only go to the gym on Monday and they don't have a workout plan. They just kind of do whatever machine is open, and it's the same weight that they've done since 2007. They're not really progressing. They're working out. They look like they're working out, but they're not really progressing, and there's no results.
Exactly. And then they wonder why they get burnt out and hate working out. Right. It's exactly. I just want to take like a commercial break and say hello. We have a lot of people like saying hello to us.
Great.
And so I want to say hi, Rosalinda and Rashid, welcome. There's all these people saying hello. And if you're new to this, make sure you click the follow button so that you can chat with us. We're with Jordan Harbinger. He's amazing, and we're talking about networking and dating and how we can create opportunities both in love and money and business and all that jazz. So I want to talk about body language, because you said something really cool that you noticed when with your friend, that the body language of her and the guys, you could tell that she wasn't having it with those guys.
Yes.
So what are some things, because I know a lot of people aren't really like versed in body language, and it is communication. I mean, 93% of communication is nonverbal. So what are some things that you teach and what people can be aware of when they walk into a room and network with body language?
So body language is kind of it's a skill set that you get through various reps, right? So I learned a lot about body language by going out and just watching people and testing assumptions. So I would go to bars or restaurants. I spent a lot of time doing that in college, and just sitting there studying or pretending to study and looking at couples and or people that looked like couples and saying, okay, are they dating? Why do I think they're dating? Let me write that down. Why do I think they're not dating? Why do I think they're dating but not getting along? Write that down. And I would often try to later test my assumption. And I'm not saying everyone has to go and do this. This is just me geeking out on body language. But I would test my assumption by the guy would, let's say, get up and go to the bathroom. And I'd be like running to the bathroom, leaving my stuff at the table. And I'd walk in and go, oh, hey, man, looks like your date's going well. And he'd go, oh, no, we're not on a date. No, that's my cousin, man. And I'd go, oh, okay, cool. And I'd be like, note to self, right? So that body language looked intimate, and it was because they're related, but not romantic. Okay. Then I look at other body language from somebody else, and I go, okay, confirm my assumption, ask the bartender, like, hey, have you seen that couple before? Yeah, they're in here, but they're always fighting. Okay, so they are a couple, but they're not getting along. All right, so that's kind of a data point on what that looks like. And, here's a couple that obviously is getting along. Those are easier to read because there's a lot of touch and there's a lot of, leaning into personal space and things like that. So I learned a lot just by constant observation and then checking observations either with I would flag down a waitress and go, hey, are they dating? Or are they related? What do you think? And she'd go, oh, no, I know them. They're married. And I'd go, okay, right. So, and I'd have wait staff go, I remember I would go to these bars and restaurants so often that I would say, okay, let me know when you find somebody who you think I would like. And the wait staff would come over and go, so that girl, I think you would like her, but that guy, he's definitely into her, but she's not interested, and I know that. And I go, yeah, I'm kind of getting that read too. And then, so I would like go and talk with the couple and all that. It was really, really an interesting experiment. Again, I'm not recommending everybody spend, 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week or whatever at bars and restaurants. We all have lives and things we have to do. But it shows you the power of nonverbal communication when there are no stakes, right? If you're trying to read body language in the moment, like my friend Tim, who got married to the gal that he talked up at the bar, he was reading the nonverbal communication fine, but it was a misread, because it's not that he couldn't tell what was going on, it's that the stakes were high for him, because he thought, uh-oh, if I'm wrong, these two guys might like get aggressive, and that might cause a problem, and da-da-da. But the stakes were zero for me, because I wasn't interested, and I was just reading what I saw. So I said, oh, they're not together. I'm sure he could have said that to himself, but he was raising the stakes too high. So the more you observe people and the more you try to read interactions with no stakes, the better you're going to get at reading nonverbal communication. And it's unfortunately not as simple as getting one of those books that's like, oh, if their legs are crossed, they're thinking about being closed off. Or like, if they're looking up and to the right, they could be telling untruths. Like, none of that stuff is really real. Body language is always in clusters, and it's in groups, and it's context dependent. So my real message here is, yes, get better at observing it. Yes, get better at reading it. But you should probably never really trust your conclusions, because you could be wrong.
I haven't heard someone talk about that in the way that you did. And I like the whole check and balance thing. Because again, we make our own assumptions, but then when you check it against somebody else, first of all, that was a great line if you wanted to meet that girl, the waitress, hey, did you notice those people? Even just saying that is a great thing. And you're just really just being curious. That's the thing about the check and balance thing that I like, is that you're just coming from a place of curiosity. And curiosity, I feel, connects everybody. It's like kids. That's like kids just walk around, like your son, right? Like, what's that? What's that? Having that state of curiosity, I feel like also is a good networking tactic. And just being, really open and asking questions to people. And also the other thing about body language is that you can be in tune with other people's body language, but also check out your own. What are you doing? What are you doing when you walk in a room? Are you open? Do you have your cab light on? Are you smiling? Are you inviting people? Because it is yin and yang. I mean, if someone looks nervous, then you might look nervous too, and then we have two nervous people. So the more you can relax yourself and not really be reactive, but be more proactive and more cognizant of what you're putting out there, that, to me, you can work a room and not even say anything. You could just go around and smile, and people will say hello to you.
Of course, yeah. And I think one of the main hang-ups for people when it comes to nonverbal communication is either knowing nothing about it. Actually, knowing nothing about it is better than knowing enough to be dangerous, right? So the worst are the people who've watched a couple YouTube videos or signed up for some online certification where they can read body language. And, they're walking around going, oh, yeah, hey, we got to move on. This woman's not interested in me. She's got her arms crossed. And I'm like, it's 55 degrees outside. Maybe she's cold. Right?
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
And then I'll go, hey, are you cold? And she'll go, yeah, I'm freezing, and I go, let's go inside. And she's like, great, thought you'd never ask. Meanwhile, he's about to go home because he's like, oh, she's not interested. She has her arms crossed. And I saw a YouTube video where that means you don't like it's just a lot of it taken out of context is just pure nonsense. And so it really can be a situation where you know just enough to be dangerous. Right? You've read one book on it, and now you think you can tell when people are lying, and all you're doing now is accusing your friends and family of lying to you when they are thinking about something, or distracted with their grocery list, or worried about their kid's babysitter not being able to work on Friday night. Now you're thinking, this person's deceiving me, right? It's very much a... You can really give yourself enough rope to hang yourself with when it comes to nonverbal communication. So I either tell people to slowly get better at it, and or just completely ignore it. And when I used to teach dating, guys would go, oh, how do I know if she's interested? And da-da-da. And they'd ask all these nonverbal cues, and I'd say, assume she's interested until she literally walks away from you.
Yes. Amen.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. You just said something, and because you're a natural, you didn't even know you did it, that I want to just extract for a second. when you saw the woman that has the arms closed, if you go up to her and you ask a question to ask if she's cold, you said, hey, are you cold? That's an observation, and then you're checking it against her. What people do and make a mistake is they'll go up to the woman and say, oh, you must be cold, aren't you? Actually, no, I'm not.
Yeah, no,
you know,
I just don't really like you. Yeah, no, I just
Actually,
don't
I
believe
hate
a word
you.
of your baloney. Yeah, there's a
Right.
lot of that, and a lot of people will try and like challenge nonverbal communication. Some of the biggest bombs you'll ever see are when, again, somebody's watched a couple YouTube videos on nonverbal communication, and they'll go up to a table full of people and go, "Oh, look at you! You're very closed off," and it's like, "Oh, am I? Is that your expert read on the situation, doctor?"
Right.
And it's just, you're basically programming that group to be the thing that you don't want, right? You're saying, oh, look at you. You guys don't look like you're having any fun. And it's like, oh, we don't? Maybe we aren't. Maybe that's because of you. Huh, we should leave. You should go away.
Yes,
right?
Because the way that is stated, it puts people on the defensive. I mean, this is like
Right.
the communication stuff, right? And when if you describe something that you're seeing, but then you're assuming that that's true, it makes somebody irritated right away. I had a guy I was coaching, and he did that to a woman. He went up to her and said, "Oh, you must really like cake or something," and because she was like looking at the cupcakes in Starbucks.
Gosh. That could be misinterpreted, obviously.
Right? And she like looked at him. She's like, it was just so creepy. I said, okay, you just totally creeped out that woman. I'm sorry. You just like, he's like, no, see, this happens all the time. I said, it's because of what you're doing. You're assuming and predicting. You're not even being in tune and asking her questions and just, again, authentically connecting with her. You're just like spewing out what you think you see.
It's funny because I'm thinking of the exact situation in which she's looking at those like cake pops
Yeah.
at the Starbucks in the display case.
Yeah.
And you can kind of choose a couple ways to go, right? Oh, you must really like cake. Bad assumption, probably can be misinterpreted. And a better sort of conversation starter would be, I just want to know who the genius is that decided to turn a piece of cake into a lollipop that I can fit in my pocket. And then it's
Bam!
like, right? And then they're like, I know, right? Every time I come here, I look at that and I think, should I get a cake pop? And I'm like, yes, give in to the temptation, treat yourself, right? And so like that's how you start these conversations, by sort of getting into a headspace where you can comment on something contextually, but you're not assuming something about the person personally, unless, of course, it's favorable, and you look like you like cake is generally not going to be a favorable assumption.
Yeah.
Because it's the reply is, what the F does that, what are you talking about, man?
How is she supposed to respond to that?
Right.
Yeah, and so what you just did so beautifully, so instead of talking about the person, you're talking about the object.
Right. It's an observational sort of contextual opener, right? A conversation starter. So, and let's say you're on any sort of improv situation can make this happen.
Yeah.
You're on a street, somebody drives down the street really fast in an old car. I was with my parents and that happened. And I think my mom said something like, or my dad said something like, man, those old cars are so loud. Some sort of like cranky old man comment, right?
That's such an old comment.
Yeah. And my mom was like, my mom said, we get it, you're very cool and you have an old car. And I was like laughing because my mom just calling out the subtext of this guy's behavior, peeling out in his Mustang or something like that. And we're like, we get it, you love showing off for strangers. That's the kind of thing that is like much more of a socially intelligent kind of observation.
Yeah.
And whenever you can dig a layer or two underneath something like that, and not make it personal. That was personal because the guy couldn't hear us and he was being irritating in the car. But the cake pop thing, or going back to the cake thing, anything that's personal is a little bit too, it's too personal. It's too intimate. You don't have rapport with them yet. You can't do that. That same assumption would be fun and flirty banter if you were out on a date after meeting up in a bar or from an app. Then it works. As a first sort of icebreaker, all you're doing is hoping that there's the 95% is she's not going to like it, and the 5% is that she will, and you're sort of rolling the dice and hoping that the odds are in your favor when they're absolutely not, right? So you have to be a little bit careful with that. Some of the best things are observational in nature and not personal.
Yeah. And And on top of it, I find that sometimes, like what you were saying in improv, the most nonsensical things are the best entries. You know, things that are just kind of fun and whimsical and also based in emotion. There was a guy, I say this example all the time because it was such a small example of something that was so powerful. I was standing at an elevator and we had just come out of our health club, and it was obvious because we were both sweating and all that jazz. And what do people normally do at an elevator? They usually say, oh, did you have a good workout? Like something that's kind of like heady and just polite. But he started at an emotional level, and he didn't even like flinch. He looks at me, he shakes his head, he says, I'm exhausted. And it was so awesome. That was such a great entry.
It was a real comment.
It was real, it was emotional, it was in the moment, and I related to it because I was tired too. So I immediately said, yeah, me too. Oh my God, I couldn't get through my workout. And because of that, we had a more powerful conversation, that 30 seconds in the elevator, than I did like right before having like a 15-minute conversation as so how was your day? Have a good workout? Like, boring.
Right. So observational good, non-personal good. Another sort of shade to that, which could have turned out poorly, and I've seen this happen before too, is so contextual was great, right? The I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
But if they had made it personal and about you, then it could have been misconstrued. So one example, I used to live across from a gym, and I would see people in the elevator all the time, and I remember very clearly where I learned this kind of lesson. One of the guys that I was with looked at one of the women who was in the elevator. It was like, you know, they just finished their yoga class or whatever. And he goes, wow, you look like you really worked up a sweat. Now, yes, but also she's thinking, oh, crap. She literally said, oh, am I that sweaty and gross right now? And I thought, ooh, you have just deflated the energy in the elevator. Like, she can't wait to get out of this elevator because she's so self-conscious based on that comment. You know, what he should have said was, pardon, you know, something like, I'm exhausted, or pardon me for being super gross and disgusting, I just had a kick-ass workout. Like, that would have worked. Right. But when you make it personal about the other person, it's left to them to interpret through whatever mood they're in, and it's not always going to work in your favor.
That is such a good distinction. So instead of saying the observation about the person, you bring it to yourself. And that immediately makes people more relaxed. Right. Because they're just being real.
Then they have a chance or an opportunity or a choice to share something about themselves.
Yeah.
Like if he said, I'm exhausted, and you said, oh, I half-assed my workout, or yeah, me too, it was really rough out there. Or you could have just been like, oh, I'm not really interested in this conversation. So what you could have said is, oh, well, at least you got a workout. You know, back to Instagram on your phone. You want to give people kind of the opportunity to share something about themselves, and the only way they're going to do that is if you do it first. You don't want to sort of project something onto them, right?
Yes.
Like, oh, you look like you've done this. You want to give them a chance to volunteer that information, because then it's voluntary. If you're projecting it on them, they either have to agree with it or disagree with it kind of in the moment. And if you get it wrong, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so awesome. Oh my God. Jordan, I miss you.
I know, right? I miss everyone, for God's sake. Of course, I miss you especially. But I haven't seen another human in person for a year and a half, for God's sake.
I know, and now we're all starting to see like humans again, and it's so nice. And I know, like, you and I could go on, and you're so like awesome to come on here. And oh my gosh, like
this is fun.
I think it's been an hour. Has it been an hour already? Oh,
it has.
God. This is okay. Wait, before you go, I do want you to tell some like celebrity stories, because you have interviewed some amazing people. Talk about networking. Like, first of all, I wondered how you even got connected to these people, but you've interviewed like Kobe Bryant and Matthew McConaughey, and you were recently on an amazing, I was so proud of you, The Con on ABC.
That's right.
So right. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about your experiences with that.
Sure. So the Jordan Harbinger Show is my podcast. Jordan Harbinger, of course, is my name. And a lot of the guests I get for the Jordan Harbinger Show, Kobe Bryant, Malcolm Gladwell, Matthew McConaughey, Mark Cuban, Dennis Rodman, whatever, they come through networking and relationship development, of course. But
of course.
I will say that a lot of the stuff that you hear on the show is great, and you learn a lot from it, but a lot of the things that I've experienced sort of outside the show are some of the more memorable ones. Like, for example, with Howie Mandel, who is a judge on America's Got Talent.
Oh, I love him.
I think most people know who he is.
Yeah.
We went to his office, and he gave us a tour, and we saw all this memorabilia, because he collects all this, like, old memorabilia. He has all these toys and stuff in there, and pictures and old stuff. And he showed us a lot of his office and was very hospitable and nice. We did the interview, and at the end, he was, like, making fun of me a little bit, which is great, because that's how you know a comedian likes you, right? They're making fun of you, and it's kind of to your face. And I said, you know, I'm curious how you choose who to give the golden buzzer to, which is golden buzzer in America's Got Talent is like they automatically advance to the finals. I think it's like a shortcut. And he said, oh, well, did you see the one I gave last night? And I said, actually, I was in my hotel last night with no cable prepping for this interview, so I didn't. And he goes, how much time do you guys have? And I was like, all the time in the world. He goes, cool, come sit down. So he opens up his TV room in his office, puts on last night's episode of America's Got Talent, because I guess he just immediately gets a tape of the show. I don't know. And we watched the whole show and the whole thing, and he's narrating how he makes decisions on what he likes to see. And I'm getting like a director's cut sort of experience sitting next to one of the judges of this show, rewatching the show from the night before with him narrating it. And I was thinking to myself, wow, at the end of it, I was like, I was thinking to myself, how lucky are we that we're able to do this? And at the end, my photographer who was there, videographer and photographer, he goes, I'm pretty sure that if we wanted to buy an experience like this, you'd have to donate like $100,000 to some cancer charity for children to get to like sit next to Howie Mandel while he narrates an episode of America's Got Talent and tells you what his decision-making process is. And me and my wife were there, and we were just like, did we just get an amazing sort of next level behind the scenes? It's like being on a movie shoot, and you know, George Clooney walks out and is like, oh, hey guys, you want to come see the script reading room, or let's go blow stuff up with special effects. Like, that's how it felt, right? And we were just blown away, and it was all it was so random. You know, I had emailed a friend of mine, and I said, I know you know Howie Mandel, I don't want you to bother him, but do you think he would do my podcast? And they were like, probably not, but here's his show booker. And they said yes, like, immediately. Oh, any friend of Adam's is a friend of ours. Come on down to the office. And the real tell about how much of a gem he was not just that behind-the-scenes experience and not just the tour that he gave us, but at the end, we packed up all of our gear, and I said, so sorry to keep you. I know you have a lot of things to do. And he goes, no, I'm going home right after this. I just came in for this today. Got in his car and left. And I was like, wow. He literally was just waiting for us to leave so that he could leave. We showed up at probably 11 a.m. It's now like 3 p.m. He literally spent his whole day with us just because he's a really good guy. And I thought to myself, if I ever get to Howie Mandel status, remind me, I told my wife, I go, remind me to be as generous and cool as he is, because that was incredible, and you never really see that. You just never get that.
That is such a cool story, but also give yourself credit too, because you must have been pretty cool for him to stay as well. Like, again, like this all goes back to, yeah, I have a feeling. Well, because no, really, and I think every person that you know, whether it's a celebrity or somebody really cool, I mean, when you really take your time to connect with that person, it is like there's a lot of gold nuggets that can come out of even just like that little sliver of time, and like look how memorable that is. That's the other thing about, you know, people that come into your life, you know, make yourself memorable, and again, it's the feeling that you get. Like the things that you described was the experience of it all. You probably didn't like really remember all the things he said, but it was just being with him and feeling into that whole time you had with him. That's so cool. Oh my God, that's such a cool thing.
It was fun and it was memorable, and it's one of those things where I go, okay, you can't buy that. That's probably never going to happen again.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You know, like there's a lot of those in my life now, just because of the network and the platform that we built with the Jordan Harbinger show, and so I'm thankful for that. I'm not much of a sort of celebrity Hollywood guy. So it is fun to take a peek behind the scenes every once in a while, but some of those things do stick with you, and you know, you really start to see like some of the people that you put up on a pedestal. Like they say, never meet your heroes, right? Because they always ruin it. But sometimes you meet heroes in unexpected places, and that was one of those times where I just thought, this is like a genuinely good guy, you know?
Yeah. So. Well, Jordan, you're a genuinely good guy too, and a dear friend. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. And no, tell everybody how they can find you. And I know you have a lot of cool stuff going on. And